Chapter 416. Andromeda City's Manor. Behind Shangguan Qianhui stood a cold and indifferent-looking young lady with gray eyes dressed in the same military uniform. Her most eye-catching feature was her head of short red hair. Jia Shangguan walked to a spirit horse and mounted it, her black hair fluttering in the wind. She raised her right arm up high. The snow-white glove was like a flag, guiding the silent army. You know about it too. Tang Tian's face was surprised. He was confused. Did I tell you before? Why don't I remember? Xiao Ran had a look of helplessness. General, can you not be so open and above board? Shouldn't a lady be more reserved? That's right, we need to find Chia. Tang Tian's gaze was far away. He was in a daze. I wonder how Chia is doing. I have become a monster. My longing for you is the sharpest sword in my hands. Tang Tian was startled. The young man's heart had already flown far away. She relied on her own strength to subdue spirit generals, build an army, and went on expeditions to find a way back. So fussy. Ling Su snorted. He stood up and returned to his room to train. Let's go. Angelina was frightened by Tang Tian's expression and could only say, it's just some of your achievements and some of your past. Tang Yi was a man of few words. His emotions were restrained, his thoughts rarely showed on his face. He quietly followed by Tang Tian's side as per usual. Ever since the appearance of the crazy young man, the number of scouts has doubled. Crane said leisurely, seems like our crazy young man is still very attractive. Xiao Ran's eyes lit up with fanaticism. The sharp and valiant young lady in front of her was the invincible war god that she worshipped. He was the god of war who had never been defeated in this battlefield that had been soaked in slaughter and slaughter. Xiao Ran did not say a word. After tidying up the military uniform, Jia Shangguan's expression became serious again. The gentleness in her eyes faded away and became as sharp as a sword. His delicate and flawless face was filled with determination. He wore a dark green military uniform with a golden ribbon. His shiny black hair draped over his shoulders, giving him a heroic aura. If you still need anything, feel free to tell Crane. Tang Tian continued. He suddenly turned the spearhead around and fiercely stabbed it into his chest. Ding, a crisp sound rang out, but his body did not leave a single mark. The current Caramel Academy was the most famous academy in Wuan Star, and no one could compare to it. Even youths from nearby planets would travel tens of thousands of miles to come here. The principal Old Fart Wei, even more wretchedly carved a stone tablet with the words, Godlike Academy written on it. The tree was planted at the most conspicuous position of the academy's main gate. Chia? Immortal Constellation's Jia Shangguan? Angelina asked curiously. Tang Tian and Jia Shangguan's relationship was not a secret. And following the rise of Tang Tian's reputation, many of Tang Tian's secrets were dug out. General, are you thinking about Tang Tian? The red-haired young lady said coldly. The war is imminent. But the commander-in-chief is thinking about his lover and not thinking about how to win. This war is truly worrying. But teacher Little Su is not afraid of pain at all. Little Su is afraid that in front of his fate, he does not have any power to retaliate. Angelina did not know what to say. This brat, can he have a bit of the demeanor of an expert? He truly did not need anything. The Andromeda battle robes were the first to be changed. The master had also approved the funds for the energy room, and the construction of the wolf stronghold was done without sparing any effort. All of Tang Tian's requests were fulfilled by Tang Tian. Only the core armies would be able to enjoy such treatment. The sound of the bugle horn, the killing intent, along with the wind, blew far away. Returning to the room, Ling Su's face was slightly pale. He removed the bandages on his body. His body was silver white. It was not Angelina's first time at the scene, but every time she came she would have a different feeling. The weather had turned cold, and in the thin mist the cold and majestic bronze fortress was already revealing a sinister and austere aura. It is better to be clear of the opponent's intentions. Crane said cautiously. The wind blew the young lady's long hair, her exquisite face without a speck of dust. Ling Su's arrogant face became gentle, revealing a look of longing. Teacher knew with his body if he wanted to train the pointed sea spear, no, the airy spear of stars, he needed to pay a price. Tang Yi shook his head. I don't need anything. You didn't tell me. I saw it from the Immortal Martial News. Angelina explained. The Immortal Martial News had an article about you. It was very detailed. On the contrary, Master Tang Tian's support for the Lupus army was somewhat over the line and did not conform to common sense. It was not a choice that a qualified commander would make. His body was completely silver. A cold intent flashed past Ling Su's eyes. Probably only lovers who meet every day have the qualifications to be reserved. Jia Shanghai Guan's gaze was slightly blurred. She suddenly stood up, tidied up her military uniform with a soft voice. She muttered, "My longing for him is the source of my pursuit of victory. Are you guys really leaving?" Angelina could not help but ask. Her expression was filled with worry. Tang Tian and the rest were all tyrannical. If they were to leave, then they would encounter the enemy's high-level fighting power, and they would be very passive. Jia Shanghai Guan followed the mountain path down. At the foot of the mountain, a strict and orderly spirit general army stood quietly. The eternally unchanging gray sky, the rusty ground, could not be seen to the end. When she entered the Southern Cross constellation, she did not expect to accidentally enter the ancient battlefield. It was the place where the three big armies fought. The three sides suffered countless casualties and the corpses piled up. The killing intent was too heavy, causing spirit generals to float everywhere, and after 10,000 years they were all abnormally strong. But Master definitely did not want me to walk to this step. Oh, they even mentioned Jia Shanghai Guan. Ling Su quietly wrapped the bandages around his body. The bandages were no longer able to help him alleviate the pain, but he was still used to using bandages, tightly wrapping his body. "Have you found out about the other party's situation?" Jia Shanghai Guan tightened her gloves and asked indifferently. Her mind suddenly surfaced the cold and mysterious figure, and immediately mocked herself. Even if everyone in the world died, he would not be moved. Master Bing did not have any requests for the Lupus army. Tang Yi was not angry at all because in terms of strength and growth, the Lupus army was truly a cannon fodder army. If not for Tang Yi pouring so much blood and sweat into the army, he would not be so reluctant. Jia Shanghai Guan's heroic and imposing face had a tinge of shyness and unspeakable charm. She chuckled. "I always think of Big Brother Tian. After fighting so many battles, Xiao Ran still has no confidence in me. It really makes me sad." In this period of time, a few merchant groups had already entered Lupus constellation, and both parties were getting closer and closer. Without any warning, his hand trembled and the spear tip pierced into the wall. But his spear technique was much stronger than before. Without any reason, he continued to tell himself with a clear conscience, to be at ease as a cannon fodder army. "I found out," Xiao Ran said excitedly. "It is an old division of the Scorpio army. After they died, they became spirit generals and gathered together. The more powerful one is a military general of the Scorpio army. This will be more troublesome." His strength had recently improved greatly and he had a strong thirst for battle. Furthermore, he could not tolerate any sand in his eyes. The scouts were like a group of flies. For him to be able to endure until now was completely due to Crane's efforts. For example, the Andromeda battle robe. Not only was it given to the Lupus army because of the large number of energy beasts, Angelina and the rest started to research on the Andromeda battle boots and other accessories, with the intention of creating an Andromeda set. One could imagine when the Lupus army was equipped with the Andromeda set, their fighting strength would definitely be reborn. Angelina was shocked by Tang Tian's anxious gaze, and suddenly felt envious. Since when would there be someone so concerned about his safety? Other than father. The Lupus stronghold was already in its embryonic form. It was purely a stronghold, firmly guarding the Seasons Fields waterway, and at the same time protecting Fairy City. The higher-ups said Jia Shanghai seems to be isolated by a strong force, and they are unable to obtain any concrete information. But the star power of Perseus constellation is recovering at an astonishing rate, and the treasures of Perseus constellation are also quickly strengthening. There is only one possibility, and that is the power of Perseus' crown has already completely recovered. Your Jia Shanghai is becoming stronger. Ling Su grinned. The pain in his body was even more intense than before, and at every moment, it was eroding his state of mind. The pain of the silver transformation was 100 times more than before. A groan sounded out from outside the wall. Tang Tian said to Tang Yi, "Once the Lupus stronghold is built, we will set off. I will leave this place to you." Ling Su snorted and said impatiently, "I already said to let me kill them all and end it all." All those distant goals no longer seemed that far away. The figure that was imprinted in his heart was the motivation for him to overcome the pain. She watched quietly and her heart was filled with more confidence. The strength that Tang Tian displayed exceeded her expectations. The progress of the Lupa stronghold was extremely fast. All of them were made of bronze. It was extremely spectacular. Could be seen behind Tang Tian there was a huge mechanical team. Chia. Tang Tian's eyes lit up and asked anxiously, "What did the higher-ups say?" Chia Shanghai nodded. "Let's go." On a rock protruding from the cliff, a young lady in a dark green military uniform, wearing snow-white gloves, propped her chin, her bright black eyes gazing into the distance, somewhat lost in thought. Yes. Tang Yi did not speak any nonsense. But such a thing had really happened. Master did not hesitate to support him, to support the cannon fodder army that he was leading. There was no reason for them to continue to be weak. She gazed at the strict army, but her heart had flown far away. What did the higher-ups say? Tang Tian opened his eyes wide, his face full of excitement. Wearing a white robe with gold edges, he picked up the silver spear at the side. Tang Tian was slightly disappointed and muttered, "They didn't even know to send someone to interview me. I have so many battle achievements, so powerful. Really, the people of Immortal Martial are too unprofessional." Tang Yi could not find any reason not to risk his life to serve. The entire Lupus army could not find any reason not to risk their lives to serve. Chapter 417. Your Majesty, please. Crane bowed and extended his hand out. An unremarkable gray aura suddenly appeared in front of Ling Su. Ling Su laughed sinisterly. "Crazy Tang, you came at the right time. The old hatred and the new hatred, I will settle it today. Watch my spear." Andromeda Orion's star door. To be able to become the commander of an army at the age of 27, such qualifications were rarely seen in the entire Heaven's Road. Although the hunting net army that he commanded was the weakest of the three armies, but everyone knew that it was because of his qualifications and not because of his strength. Before the two lunatics could react, he had to stay far away from them. Damn it! They escaped too quickly. Ling Su's gaze harbored ill intentions as he looked at Crane, his spear tip pointed at Crane and roared, "Little Crane, since he ran, then come and fight with me." Adrian's mouth revealed a sneer. "In the past, when I roamed the various constellations in Heaven's Road, I stayed in Ursa Major constellation for half a year. In the entire Ursa Major constellation, everyone is filled with ambition. Yan Yonglai has worked hard and the current Ursa Major constellation has already reached the peak. If they want to improve, they can only expand outwards. If they expand outwards, they only have one choice." "That's right." Adrian revealed a smile. "Bear King Yan Yonglai, this person has a fiery temper. If he knew that Yen Tu died in Fairy City, he would definitely attack Andromeda constellation." Only then did Ling Su see the opponent clearly. He was dressed in gray, his face pale white, his eyes empty, his facial features like a doll, extremely flat, but the deepest impression was the smile on his mouth, which took up a third of his face, cold and demonic. The two of them immediately sensed danger. Crane carefully searched in his mind for a long time, then shook his head. Never heard of him. Ling Su's pupils constricted, the hand holding onto the spear tip pressed down. The spear tip was like a venomous snake, accurately hitting the gray aura. When Flute led the hunting net army to arrive, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. And the arrival of the army caused the opponent's martial artists to quickly retreat. "That's right." Adrian straightforwardly nodded his head. "If Andromeda constellation only has Angelina and the Plateau army, doing this is undoubtedly seeking death. However, there's one more variable now." A cold light flickered in Adrian's eyes. "Also, the fierceness of the battle for the Stargate puzzles me. Why did so many experts suddenly appear? The timing is too coincidental. There is a possibility that the Honorable Martial Alliance has already colluded with the Ursa Major constellation. In the past few days, the battles surrounding the Star Door were extremely intense." Angelina pointed to the two people who were shouting and screaming and asked blithely. Axie was slightly worried. Wouldn't that give him an excuse to attack? Axie replied solemnly. "It will not be an alliance. If it is an alliance, Yen Tu can just walk into Fairy City. But Yen Tu has quietly snuck in and has not shown himself." But that cold aura was like a bone maggot, chasing after him closely. The faintly discernible killing intent was like an erratic poisonous snake, causing him to be unable to pinpoint the opponent's position. "It's Yen Tu is here." Lu Zhongguang's tone was filled with excitement. Not only Yen Tu, there are two other Ursa major martial artists beside him. These two old fellows are too powerful, we were almost discovered by them. Ling Su turned a deaf ear, his spear was like rain and he laughed sinisterly. Little Crane, count it as your bad luck today. A light flashed past Adrian's eyes and he suddenly asked Lu Zhongguang. They didn't make any movements earlier? Ling Su asked in a deep voice. He shook his arm and the gray and strange true power slowly dissipated. The astonishing destructive power of a gold-ranked martial artist was displayed vividly. The once flourishing city was now in ruins. If Wuxia saw the three of them, he would definitely be shocked. The three of them were Adrian, Axiu and Lu Zhongguang, who had clearly left Fairy City. When Adrian heard that a large number of unknown martial artists suddenly appeared near the Starry Door, he felt that something was wrong. They pretended to be supporting the Starry Door and then quietly returned to Fairy City and hid. Angelina was stunned. Master Crane, so beautiful. She quickly regained her senses and said shyly, "That's great." "No, their target is Andromeda constellation." Adrian shook his head. "It seems like they want to quietly control Andromeda constellation." To control Andromeda constellation, they have to control two people at the same time. One is Tang Tian and the other is Angelina. Angelina is easy to handle, but Tang Tian is not. "We will meet again in the future." He suddenly turned his head and grinned at Ling Su. It was indescribably terrifying. His body stopped abruptly. The opponent rushed forward a few steps, stopped and turned his body. "Leave Yen Tu behind." Xiao and Lu Zhongguang jumped in fright. Without thinking, Ling Su rubbed his fingers on the spear shaft, causing it to spin violently, like a venomous dragon coming out of its cave. At the same time, he exerted strength in his body and dashed towards the wall. Bang! The wall in front of Ling Su was like a piece of paper. Countless rocks flew everywhere and Ling Su was like a ferocious tiger soaring through the air. Crane covered his face with his hands. Tang Tian's question made him feel ashamed. "We were just talking about other people." Tang Tian asked curiously, "Hey, who are you?" Shilin hurriedly ran to the bathroom and hastily washed his face. He looked much more energetic. Crane stood up, his black robe fluttering even though there was no wind. His expression was calm. He held onto his sword and said coldly, "Everyone's actions are somewhat rude." The martial artist on the right of Yen Tu was called Jian Feng Yuan. He snorted and unknowingly, a ghost head blade appeared in his hand. He raised the blade and slashed down without any fancy moves. The thick and sturdy beam produced a sound that made people's teeth ache. Axiu and Lu Zhongguang's expression changed. Was this the power of a Ursa major martial artist? The two martial artists beside Yen Tu were enraged. Since when did someone dare to be so arrogant in front of them? "That's good too, it saves us 2 trips. Yen Tu stood up, his face filled with killing intent. "Bring your men and take down Angelina, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Go and find Tang Tian," Adrian said in a deep voice. Ling Su, who was in the air, was excited. His eyes were filled with fanaticism. Once he unleashed his spear, he felt an unprecedented sense of comfort. The fighting intent that he had been suppressing for the past few days was unleashed with this spear. The indestructible silver liquid caused the tip of his spear to shine like a star. Flute's nose is very sensitive. The martial artist in the middle chuckled. "I'll handle this." Huofu Man patted Shilin's shoulder. "Do what you have to do first." The two Ursa major martial artists beside Yen Tu suddenly opened their eyes. A cold light flashed in their eyes. The aura around their bodies suddenly increased, and an astonishing pressure filled the entire hall. The air seemed to have solidified and it was suffocating. Huofu Man did not show his worry on his face. After looking at Shilin for a long time, he suddenly said, "Raise your head." A godlike young man, how could he be ignored? Crane was deep in thought while Tang Tian exclaimed, "Wah! So cunning! So cunning! Go and find Tang Tian." But Lu Zhongguang did not understand. Axiu, on the other hand, looked at his teacher with admiration. A small team was flying through the wilderness. They suddenly stopped in their tracks. In front of them there were 3 martial artists blocking their way. To be able to block the combined attack of 2 Ursa major martial artists and still be safe and sound was already unbelievable. And at this time he still said, "Again." Adrian, who had been calm all along, upon seeing Ling Su's breathtaking spear, his body suddenly straightened, the light in his eyes exploding, and his heart was in a perilous state. "Kakaka." Axie felt extremely strange. Ling Su was just like the rumors, a hot-tempered martial arts fanatic. To be able to be named as the king of the constellation was undoubtedly the most outstanding martial artist of the constellation. In the Ursa Major constellation, there were only 7 people who had the title of King Bear. The 2 of them did not even make a move, but just their aura was already terrifying. Around the 2 of them, there seemed to be a circle of transparent ripples, spreading out in all directions. The 2 of them were expressionless and their expressions were cold. What? Tang Tian jumped up and scolded, "Little Crane, this kind of behavior, is it only rude? I'm just being polite." "Is this guy crazy?" Pointing his silver spear at the 3 of them, Ling Su shouted, "Again." Shilin's face revealed a look of shame. Suddenly, a carefree laugh came out from a pile of rubble. Bang! The pile of rubble suddenly exploded and the rubble fell like rain. Ling Su carried his silver spear and slowly walked out. He had underestimated 3 Spirit City. The sound of the bell lingered, faintly discernible. Huofu Man blamed himself. In front of him, Shilin's face was ashen and his expression was dejected. This failure was a huge blow to him. The loss of 4 gold-ranked martial artists, Huofu Man did not feel any pain, but Shilin's current state made him worried. Ling Su flew back at an even faster speed and smashed into the wall. Bang! The entire wall collapsed. The spear. Xiao and Lu Zhongguang heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. Their minds had the same thought as expected of a King Bear martial artist. Ling Su's actions were too rash. In Crane's vision, a silver figure flashed past. It was Ling Su who was hungry for food. "Oh no, he was already impatient," roared. He shot forward like an arrow. His spear tips were like rain, covering the 3 of them. Lu Zhongguang was dumbstruck. Xiao was also dumbstruck. Even Adrian was dumbstruck. Does he not want his life? I should have thought of it earlier. With Duan Mu's strength, even if he could not win, it would not be difficult for him to escape. But now there was no news of him. The pupils of the 3 of them suddenly dilated, their faces revealing a look of surprise. Crane. The concentrated and crisp sounds of impact sounded like beans being fried. Huaman threw out a piece of paper. "Pack your things. His Majesty wishes for you to go to the south. The Aboriginals there have been restless recently." Alright, in any case, any opponent would be better than Crazy Tang. Calm down. Calm down. Crane, you are a cultured and courteous disciple of an aristocratic family. Do not bicker with these nouveau riches. Crane's face froze. Yan Tu was surprised. "Not bad, Elder Rong. I want him alive." "Shut up." The veins on Ling Su's forehead were throbbing. Adrian already did not know how to describe his feelings. Ling Su had already made him feel that he was incomparably breathtaking and brought him a huge impact. Now Crane, who had always kept a low profile, suddenly exploded with a strong aura, and he could smell that unique scent again. Silence. Crane was expressionless, and the hand that was holding onto the hilt of his sword suddenly tightened. Let it all end. His eyes flashed with a hint of anger, and the aura on his body became even more intense. With a roar, the aura that enveloped both of his arms suddenly twisted, and transformed into a bare head that roared angrily and clashed with Adrian's palms. Above the Grandmaster level was the spirit domain. "Elder Jian, I want him alive," Yan Tu said in a deep voice. Crane raised his stiff face and his eyes were cold. The hand that was holding onto the hilt of his sword suddenly loosened its grip. The screen that was originally full of cracks instantly shattered. Because of that kind of stubborn fanaticism, it was really shocking. In the midst of the shattered aura, Adrian's body trembled and he took a few steps back. Tang Tian was stunned for a moment, and then he pointed at Crane and laughed. "Huh. Little Crane, no one cares about you." "No. They're people. Reason. But why did his judgment waver so much? Hey, I say the main character is here. The expert that you are destined to be defeated is here. Look here, look clearly." Xiao's face changed and he looked at Yan Tu in disbelief. How could Yan Tu be so strong? As expected of a hunter. Yan Tu laughed. "Although you have mastered the spirit domain, you are still not my opponent. Don't be careless. You are a shrewd old man. If you are not careful, you will be in danger." It was the power of the spirit domain. Adrian was not sure. He had always prided himself on his sharp eyes, but this time, the young man in front of him made him feel uncertain. Was it the spirit domain, that interfered with his judgment? Adrian immediately denied it. He was only one step away from the sacred domain, and his understanding of this spirit domain was much deeper than Ling Su. Sure enough, he was laughed at. Xiao groaned and his whole body flew out. Crane took a step forward, his face was like jade and his eyes were like the stars. He said elegantly, "May I ask who is my opponent?" His gaze landed on Tang Tian and his eyes narrowed. If he could capture this guy, he would win. He had wasted so much of his time on such an idiot. He had been too careful. The so-called miracle was all thanks to the two thugs beside him. Chapter 420. After cultivating to Yen Tu's level, his six senses were extremely sensitive. Crane and Ling Su's gazes made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Why was he being stared at like that? Yen Tu roared. He did not care about his defense and unleashed all sorts of techniques. But the heavenly martial werewolf's blood meridian was 92% complete. Heh! Tang Tian's voice pulled Adrian back from his thoughts. Tang Tian raised his head. Adrian was surprised to see that Tang Tian did not look sad at all. Instead, he had a bright smile on his face. Thousand-cleaved demonic hand. Mother. This ridiculous reason made Yen Tu laugh out loud. Ha! A little brat whose hair hadn't even grown out yet. Give this battle to your mother. Oh, I remember. The last time I said this I was 7 years old. This guy. It had been a long time since he said goodbye to his mother in front of her grave. Yen Tu's true power was extremely strong. Furthermore, he had already grasped the basics of the spirit domain. This ordinary killing technique in his hands was extremely powerful. Mother, you must be watching me from the heavens. Because this battle is for my mother in the heavens. A snow-white palm pierced through the leg aura. Ping, the leg aura was crushed. Just because of this guy? Ah. Yen Tu's eyes were cold. He sneered and said, "Does his mother know that he's so powerful?" Tang Tian was elated. Even Crane had admitted that he was the strongest. His wounded heart was instantly comforted. As for the part where Crane said that his brain was not that good, Tang Tian had automatically ignored it. The light that enveloped both of his arms twisted and suddenly turned into a bare head that was roaring angrily. Tang Tian's finger was like a knife piercing through tofu. It easily pierced through the light around Yen Tu's body. I will not disappoint you. Tang Tian's smile froze on his face. Yen Tu looked at Tang Tian in confusion, then at Crane. He could not understand why Crane, who was a powerful and influential person, would accept a fool as his leader. But the layer of true power that was harder than steel was like a crispy biscuit easily broken apart. His aura suddenly exploded without any warning. His entire body's true power was as one. His aura was vigorous and forceful. His pounce was extremely tyrannical. Even a mountain in front of Yen Tu would crumble under his pounce. Feeling threatened, Yen Tu snapped out of his daze. He roared and gathered all the true power in his body. With a weird posture, he pounced towards Tang Tian. Tang Tian was the strongest among the three. Amidst the scattered brown light, a pair of nimble hands and a ghostly figure could be vaguely seen. However, Tang Tian's 10 fingers once again pierced into the bear's head at a weird angle. Tang Tian's arms trembled and his 10 fingers exerted strength. Ping, a crisp sound was heard. The layer of true power around Yen Tu was forcefully broken. Yen Tu roared and changed his hand technique again. He swung his right elbow. Yen Tu's smile froze. Ping. What kind of joke was that? Seeing that Yen Tu was looking at him, the kind-hearted Crane reminded him. Just like how your highness is the strongest martial artist among the three of us, this fellow, although he is not very smart, is also the strongest among the three of us. Your highness, please be careful. That was a killing technique unique to the Ursa Major constellation. Martial artists with strong physiques and true power were trained in the violent bear killing technique. In a battle they would be invincible. Even if it was a city gate or an arrow tower under such a fierce attack, there would only be one result, which was to collapse. The only thing that could make him feel warm was his mother's memory of the tomb and his mother's memory. Adrian stared blankly at Tang Tian. He could not believe his eyes. Yen Tu's face was blank. He did not understand what had just happened. His 36 layers of iron bear skin had never been broken by anyone before. Not only that, in the history of the Ursa Major constellation, as long as the iron bear skin was trained to the 24 layers, it would never be broken by a direct attack. That lively youth just now seemed to have become sad all of a sudden. Tang Tian exposed a smile with a serious expression. He said word by word. Ling Su also looked at Yen Tu with pity. He kept his spear and said to Rong Ro, "Let's go out and fight." Not happy. The brown layer of true power around his body was as hard as steel. It was indestructible. The air around Tang Tian's body continued to break apart. An astonishing amount of energy flowed through his body. Yen Tu's body was like a sandbag and he was sent flying. Both of his palms, which were intertwined, suddenly staggered, and with a weird angle he stabbed towards the thick brown halo around Yen Tu's body. Looking at the mist-like brown aura, Yen Tu could not help but be stunned. Yen Tu was stunned again. This technique was called crushing bare head. It was extremely powerful. This technique of Yen Tu's could easily destroy a city wall. Yen Tu's leg was filled with true power, and the aura of his leg was like a whip. In Tang Tian's vision, Yen Tu's body was blurry like a brown shadow. The aura exploded one after another, followed by a crisp cracking sound. Yen Tu was like a beast on the brink of death, crazily fighting back. "For my mother in heaven. Mother, I miss you. I really, really miss you." Yen Tu's disdainful smile froze on his face. Damn it. The corners of Adrian's eyes twitched. This seemingly meaningless exhalation caused him to feel a trace of unusualness. That bleak life. It's time to end this. Ping ping ping. He had used this technique against Adrian just now and it was extremely effective. Crane looked at Yen Tu pitifully, then turned to Jian Fengyuan and said, "Let's go out and fight." Yen Tu's mouth curled into a sinister smile. The focused youth did not notice at all that his thousand-cleaved demonic hand seemed to have an additional charm as he waved it around. Tang Tian's pupils were as indifferent as a void, his face seemed to be shrouded in shadows and was indistinct. How was this possible? Yen Tu and Adrian were stunned. At the same time the injured Xiao and Lu Zhongguang were also stunned. Crane's face was serious. He did not look like he was joking. But when everyone's gaze landed on Tang Tian, who had a face full of pride, they felt that it was ridiculous. Yen Tu's anger flared up. He swore to himself that he would tear this asshole in front of him into pieces later. In his field of vision, the surrounding scenery had turned into a void. The ground, the walls, the roofs, everything had disappeared. He and Yen Tu seemed to be in a void. Above their heads was a full moon as white as jade. Tang Tian let out a sigh. It sounded like a sigh of relief, like a yearning, like an encouragement, like a reminiscence, like the wind in the mountains of Star Wind City. All of a sudden, a shadow appeared in front of him. Yen Tu instinctively pushed both of his arms outwards. It was like a shapeless net. A gentle face appeared in his mind. It was a familiar and intimate face that had been deeply imprinted in his mind ever since he could remember. He thought about the time after his mother passed away. He huddled in a corner and cried non-stop. He was alone, hopeless and afraid. He started to get used to it. He got used to standing in front of his mother's grave. He got used to standing in front of his mother's grave. He got used to standing in front of his mother's grave. He got used to standing in front of his mother's grave. He got used to standing in front of his mother's grave and saying that he would teach those who bullied him a lesson. His elbow was like a hammer. His gaze involuntarily landed on Tang Tian's face and fear arose in his heart. Just what kind of martial skill was this? Because the victory of this battle was for his mother. He did not hesitate to counter Yen Tu's every attack. He wanted to let his mother in the heavens see his improvement and see that her son had become stronger than before. "Oh my one. Did you see that? I'm very powerful." He stared at Yen Tu's corpse on the ground. Yen Tu was no longer breathing. As if something had filled his heart, Ling Su couldn't help but shout, "Kill!" Dong. All of a sudden, a figure barged into his field of vision like a gust of wind into the glowing shield. Boo. Rong Ro was panting as he stared at Ling Su. Doesn't this guy get tired? Even the turbulent airflow could not cover the light burning in his eyes. In the midst of the airflow that was like blades dancing in the air, countless amounts of blood splattered. Tang Tian's arms were extended gently. His 10 fingers were like vines in early spring, filled with vitality. The silver frost battle song sounded in his ears. What you laugh at is exactly what I cherish. What you turn your nose up at is exactly what my heart yearns for. What you discard like a shoe is exactly what I long for. What you consider naive and childish is exactly what I hope to believe in. That pair of hands, which seemed to have magical power, did not cower in the face of the violent and powerful attack. He was not afraid at all. Ling Su was panting heavily. Rong Rou's strength was indeed stronger than his. But he was not the least bit afraid. Only such a strong martial artist could train the young man's spear techniques to become even stronger. A dull sound was heard. Ling Su felt that the tip of the spear was blocked by layers of layers. The power of the spear was getting weaker and weaker. The ripples that Rong Rou released could be both hard and soft like an extremely tough spider web. How can I die in the hands of this fool? Little Su will never retreat. Yen Tu's heart-wrenching roar echoed in the air. Anger, despair and fear were mixed together. The true power in his body went out of control and went straight into his heart. Yen Tu's roar stopped abruptly. He opened his eyes wide and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground. Looked like Ling Su was going to fall any time. But at the 50th move Ling Su was like this. Now that 200 moves had passed he was still like this. Ling Su's eyes flashed with a trace of anger. The true power in his body was burning. He shook the silver spear in his hand and exerted strength in his legs. He pushed against the spear and took a big step forward. Tang Tian was like an angry arrow, piercing into the berserk hurricane. How can this be? Tang Tian's eyes were like the stars in the night sky, slowly lighting up. His movements became faster and faster. His intuition and judgment became more accurate. The thousand-cleaved demonic hand became more and more terrifying in his hands. As though he was stepping on a drum beat, Ling Su lowered his back and held the silver spear in his hand straight. The young man's eyes were burning with passion. His face was solemn and solemn. He was like an ancient knight charging forward. The chaotic and intense airflow brushed past. His face was not very clear. But on that young face there was only seriousness, incomparable seriousness. No matter what, I have to win. When was the last time I was this tired? But Rong Rou's gaze was fixated on Ling Su's eyes. His orange-red eyes were like burning fireballs, and his battle intent seemed to have materialized. From the start of the battle until now, there was not the slightest change. Even though he looked like an arrow at the end of its flight, the burning fighting intent in his orange eyes was still intense, as though he wanted to burn the entire world. He was already a man of indomitable spirit. This guy is actually not afraid at all. Time seemed to have stopped. Rong Rou's heart was filled with respect. But Tang Tian blocked it. They suddenly disappeared in the air. In Rong Rou's eyes, a trace of admiration flashed past. Yen Tu roared in his heart. His right arm suddenly released a light aura that shot up to the sky. An arm flew out from afar, bringing with it a dazzling light aura, igniting a terrifying flame. In the hall Adrian was dumbstruck. He had never thought that the battle would turn out like this. The young man wailed. In his eyes, there were only rays of brown true power aura left. Tang Tian, who was pouncing on Yen Tu, had an unwavering gaze. The fine and sharp airflow wrapped around him, causing his body to bleed profusely, but it did not affect him at all. Tang Tian's expression did not change at all. Yen Tu's violence and fierceness did not affect him at all. He was focused and serious like a rock. The sharp airflow streaked past his cheeks, causing a few drops of blood, but he did not feel anything. The rapid airflow blew past his eyelashes but he did not move an inch. Rong Rou's eyes lit up. Ling Su's spear, compared to all the previous spears, was purer and more outstanding. Yen Tu stood there in disbelief. His right arm had disappeared, and there was a horrifying wound on his shoulder with fresh blood spurting out. Yen Tu's heart calmed down and all the pressure seemed to have disappeared. Confidence returned to his body, and the feeling of being in control of heaven and earth made him smile again. Even the true power aura could not be formed. No, I definitely cannot die here. I definitely cannot die in the hands of this guy. Definitely not. I, Yen Tu, am a strong martial artist who will dominate the heavens road. I, Yen Tu. I miss him so much. Yen Tu knew it was the last chance. If he did not use it now, he would die. Such a ferocious attack, if not for seeing it with his own eyes, Adrian would not believe that anyone could withstand it. At least no one below the saint level would be able to withstand it. Facing Yen Tu, the only way was to temporarily avoid the attack, and slowly exhaust his opponent's physical strength and true power. His footsteps were as heavy as a drum. He flicked his fingers and a transparent circular ripple was emitted from his fingers, flying towards the cold aura shot out from Ling Su's spear. Silver spear like snow, untainted clouds. Sheep's horn bell unheard of by the cool breeze. Thinking about his previous plan, Adrian realized that he had made a huge mistake. Yen Tu was much stronger than he had imagined. This strength was not only because of Yen Tu's strength, but also because of Yen Tu's craziness in adversity. He did not care if he had any flaws, did not care if he was injured, and did not care if he could protect himself. He only had one goal, and that was to destroy his opponent. Tang Tian tried his best to widen his eyes, but his face did not change at all. The terrifying energy ripple, the danger of being stabbed by the needle, he did not care about anything at all. Why should I retreat? Why should I dodge? Dong dong dong. Yen Tu's roars were getting weaker and weaker, and a feeling of fear was growing in his heart. This young man is very strong. Yen Tu finally felt fear. Tang Tian's attacks were everywhere, and he felt as if he had fallen into an invisible net. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape from the net. Furthermore, the net was getting tighter and tighter. The strong feeling of suffocation made him feel that death was so close to him for the first time. It was so close that he could see the god of death grinning at him. Tears flowed down his cheeks and flowed past his wounds. Along with the fresh blood, the tears fell onto the ground beside the young man's feet, wetting the dust. The strong airflow contained a terrifying energy ripple, and Tang Tian could not open his eyes. His whole body felt like it was being stabbed by needles, and that was the danger signal from the energy ripple. At this moment it was safer to retreat. His face, which was full of scars but was as tough as steel, started to melt. Ling Su's spear skills were outstanding, and he was able to understand the spirit domain at such a young age. Although these extraordinary points were powerful in Rongrou's eyes, they were only limited to that. The only thing that he had never seen in anyone else was this undying battle intent that he had never seen before. In the end, the winner will only be me. Only I am worthy of victory. He was very clear of Yen Tu's strength. Her Highness had been gifted since she was a child, and her physique far exceeded that of an ordinary person. In addition, her temperament matured early and she was very hardworking. His Majesty was extremely fond of Yen Tu and did not spare any effort to groom him. Very few people knew that Yen Tu's sparring partners were the 7 King Bear warriors. The crane sword in his hand trembled slightly, Crane's mouth revealed a warm smile. Old Jian, snatch that thing. Rongrou's anxious voice woke Jian Fengyuan from his dream. Rongrou's eyes blurred and Crane appeared in front of him again. Right now, being weak wasn't scary. What was scary was the lack of desire for strength, the desire for victory. The black figure disappeared like a bubble, leaving Crane standing in his original position with the sword in his hand. Crane's body was like a nail nailed to the ground, not moving an inch, the corner of his mouth revealing a trace of blood. He forcefully stabilized his body, the pain in his palm did not seem to be felt. His gaze stared blankly at Ling Su. With His Highness' strength, how could he die? Furthermore, His Highness still has that thing. What an intoxicating feeling. He suddenly turned, his gaze was like lightning as he looked at the house in the distance. Rongrou's face changed again. Facing the cold aura that was as bright as the stars, he flicked his fingers and retreated. Rongrou did not care about being surprised. He gathered the remaining true power in his body and flicked his fingers. As a King Bear martial artist, Jian Fengyuan had seen many ups and downs and knew of the dangers involved. Even His Highness was not willing to touch him. If he were to kill Crane like a fool, how stupid would that be? He might as well put on a harmless look. He was waiting for His Highness' victory, and when His Highness captures Tang Tian alive, his mission would be over. Bang! Come on! Crane's figure flickered and 13 identical black figures appeared in front of the two of them. Impossible. How is that possible? Even if I win, there is no benefit for me at all, then why fight? When the last step was completed, the light aura from the spear tip was extremely bright. His Highness was tyrannical and fierce, and his strength was currently stronger than them. And His Highness was an expert in concealment. His strength had never been revealed before. Rongrou's confidence in His Highness was even stronger than his own. An unprecedented feeling surfaced. Ling Su felt that he could control every detail of the spear, and every bit of strength in the rotation of the spear body. True power flowed into the spear body straight to the spear tip, and he could clearly feel that the moment the true power flowed through the spear tip, the spear body trembled slightly. Suddenly, his eyes blurred and a figure blocked in front of him. The light aura suddenly exploded, and in front of Rong-Ro was a vast expanse of white. The blazing meteor struck the round shield. He actually broke through at the last moment. Crane had never seen such a shameless person before. Since young, he had been nurtured by his mother, and his temperament was originally pure and gentle. At that moment he did not know where to start. Move aside. Crane looked at Jian Fengyuan helplessly. Revolving swords wheel Crane dance. Rong-Ro did not move. He continued to stare blankly at the unconscious Ling Su. The shock in his heart was indescribable. His position in Ursa Major constellation was high, and he had seen countless of geniuses. But he had never seen someone who was so stubborn and thirsty for victory. The two completely different voices shook everyone's eardrums to the point of pain. Rong-Ro spat out a mouthful of blood. He was originally an arrow at the end of its flight. He forcefully exerted his strength, but was unable to fight against Crane, and with the backlash of his true power, he was immediately heavily injured. Jian Fengyuan's eyes were red. He stared fiercely at Crane. Like a wild beast in a desperate situation, he bellowed. But the current him had thrown all of his worldly wisdom to the back of his head. His expression was as calm as water. His white slender fingers wiped off the traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. Even this action was extremely graceful. Rong-Ro's expression froze on his face. A terrifying thought that caused him to tremble suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. Tang Tian clenched his fists tightly, his eyes immediately turning red, and was about to rush towards Jian Fengyuan. The house that was unable to bear the burden completely collapsed. Please don't interfere. Crane's firm voice forcefully interrupted Tang Tian. It was the first time Tang Tian heard Crane's firm and unquestionable tone. He stared at Crane's back in a daze. Suddenly the two of them turned their heads. A dazzling light pillar shot up into the sky. An energy undulation that caused people's hearts to palpitate came out from the house. His charging steps brought along a perfect rhythm. Every step he took on the ground would cause his power to increase by a bit, causing the light aura of the spear tip to become brighter by a bit. Crane's heart has never changed. Sword, can you hear me? The Crane sword in his hand lit up with a misty light aura, shining on his face, sincere and solemn. The loose black robe on his body moved without any wind. This is my opponent, this is my area of protection, this is my battle. Please let my sword complete it. Ling Su was feeling extremely strange. Every strand of true power in his meridians listened to him like never before. The silver muscles suddenly became soft. Even the usually quiet martial spirit was extremely lively. Rong-Ro's footsteps froze in place. Of course he knew what it was. The ripples spread out, merging into one, forming a distorted transparent round shield in front of him. Crane brought out a series of afterimages. Every afterimage was extremely realistic. The Crane sex Crane dance in his hands was displayed to the extreme. This spear caused his face to change. Both of his eyes opened wide. Both of his palms extended out. His 5 fingers opened up. His 10 fingers seemed to be pressed into a calm lake, 10 ripples appearing from his fingertips. Chapter 423. Ever since this thought popped out, Duan Mu's mind kept spinning. After further contact, he realized that the reason why the mechanical martial artists were of low realms was directly related to the low level of training they had received. It was too dangerous. If he was 1 second late, the thing would have been released and he would have died. Why did they retreat? After sitting in a daze for a while, she gradually recovered from the shock, sat on the stairs, scratching her head and racked her brains. And the other people who had grasped these techniques were the strong martial artists. The stronger the strong martial artists were, the more profound their understanding of martial techniques, and the more profound their research on training would be. They could not compare to the aristocratic families who had accumulated their knowledge over generations, but there would always be some outstanding geniuses who could create a new sect, or a new aristocratic family. Rong-Ro was stunned, her face pale, her eyes revealing a look of despair. He knew that old Jian had always been sly, but he did not expect his willpower to be so weak. Without the guidance of a master lacking resources. Especially Wuxia's #1 fighter, the experienced and fierce man, his blade techniques were extremely powerful. He alone had taken up more than half of the defensive line's energy. That was why the rest could be so calm. For the past few days he had been thinking about the mechanical army, and had some deductions and guesses in his mind. But when he truly interacted with them he was shocked to find out that the realms of the mechanical martial artists were extremely low. After 7 continuous revolving swords Crane dance, Crane had successfully destroyed Jianfeng Yuan's ghost head blade, and also completely destroyed Jianfeng Yuan's fighting spirit and fighting intent. But Crane's physical strength and true power were completely exhausted. Duanmu had made up his mind no matter what he had to let the first team win. But how many armies could have a gold-ranked martial artist as a sparring partner? It was a little too extravagant. Walking out of the basement, the brightly lit training grounds could be heard from time to time, and many huge figures were running and sprinting under the lights. Everything in front of him was filled with vitality. Suddenly Duanmu was looking forward to the future. After Yen Tu's right arm flew out, a ball of flames rose up, but it had already been burnt to ashes, leaving only this thing. Needless to say, Tang Tian knew that it was a treasure. Sai Lei regained her senses and laughed. "Oh right, sister has high hopes for you and specially arranged for you to be in the first team. Qi Guang will be in charge of the second team. 1 month later the 2 groups will have a real battle. The losing group will have to accept punishment." Although these young people, not all of them were geniuses, but to grow to the 7th or 8th level was not a problem. Angelina's face turned white. She did not expect that Wuxia would actually dare to commit such a heinous crime and harm her. Chapter 424. A look of shock flashed past Tu Qing's eyes. Even Yen Tu was unable to ignite the desolate bare bones martial spirit, but the other party was able to do it. It was completely against logic. Ah. Good. We, the Ursa Major martial artists, have never been afraid of anyone. Yen Yonglai laughed out loud. He immediately stopped and said, "Go and prepare." The star power of a constellation was produced by the constellation's circulation and was endless. But if it was used up too much, it would also affect the constellation's circulation, and the star power produced would shrink greatly. The fierce and savage qi enveloped Fairy City. The light aura of Ursa Major constellation in the sky suddenly erupted. A thick and solid gold light pillar descended from the sky, enveloping Tang Tian and the rest. Tu Qing's throat felt as though it was blocked by something. Just at that moment, a tall and imposing figure dressed in armor walked into the palace and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty." Yen Yonglai said coldly, "Other than Commander Tu, the rest stand down." But the most surprising was actually Tang Tian. Tang Tian was like a bottomless pit. Above his head, there was actually an astonishing gold-colored waterfall, like a golden waterfall frantically entering his body. Yen Yonglai smiled, looking sinister. "Before I slowly grow old to be able to gamble my life in a battle to the death, the heavens have already treated me well. 10 years of my lifespan in exchange for this opportunity, it is worth it." Jianfeng Yuan's face revealed a look of ecstasy. The dense star power to him was a supreme tonic. Rong Ro, who was beside him, had a complicated expression. He laughed bitterly in his heart. He trained in the inheritance of Ursa Major constellation. The pure and surging star power was extremely beneficial to him. But after today he and Jianfeng Yuan would most likely become the enemies of Ursa Major constellation, and the Majesty would definitely not let them go. The gold bone was one of the 3 gold treasures of Ursa Major constellation. Desolate Bear Bone. Ursa Major constellation had 3 gold treasures: Head of the King Bear, Desolate Bear Bone, and Demonic Bear Secret Claw. Desolate Bear Bone was not the strongest but the most mysterious. Crane Sword was the saint treasure of Heavenly Crane constellation, but it had been sealed for many years. The Heavenly Crane constellation had declined for a long time. The star power had withered without nourishment for a long time. It was far from its peak. Right now it was a great opportunity for it to nourish itself. Ursa Major constellation's star power was 2 levels higher than Heavenly Grus constellation. What more such dense star power? "Your Majesty." Tu Qing paled in shock. Wuxia and the rest stopped in their tracks as they stared in disbelief at the pillar of light descending from the sky. The pillar of light was too conspicuous. The entire fairy city could see it. Behind him, astonishing energy fluctuations soared into the sky. Rong Ro finally understood why the Desolate Bear Bone was related to the fate of Ursa Major constellation. The reason was simple: star power, the vast and astonishing Ursa Major constellation star power. The beam of light continued to wash down, forming a dazzling golden circle of light around Tang Tian's 5 zhang radius, enveloping all of them. All of you, shut up. No return without victory. Suddenly one of the subordinates shouted in horror. The others were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed. Secret treasure. The power of my secret treasure is weakening. Yan Yonglai shook his head. There will be no more desolate bare bones in the future. However, his body, which he thought was perfect, was extremely fragile in the golden flames. Yan Yonglai had bestowed the desolate bare bone to His Highness Yan Tu, who knew. And Ling Su's sheep horn wind bells was a relic of the silver frost mounts in the past, and had a long history. But the inheritance of Aries constellation had changed, causing it to be unable to obtain the nourishment of the star power. Such a good opportunity was like a dried-up land, greedily absorbing the star power. When they saw Yan Yonglai, it was as though they had seen their last hope, and all of them cried out for help. Tang Tian looked at his palm in a daze. No matter who it is, I will definitely take revenge for you. Tu Qing's expression congealed. This matter is somewhat strange. Although the desolate bare bone controls 1/3 of the star power, but usually it can only use 1%. Such a scale of star power extraction has never happened before. The words spoken through clenched teeth were filled with killing intent. With regards to the desolate bare bone, there had always been a legend. It was related to the fate of Ursa Major constellation. The legend was vague and no one knew for sure, and the desolate bare bone's aid in battle was the weakest out of the 3 treasures. The head bear was the saint treasure of Ursa Major constellation, and was held by Bear King Yan Yonglai, while the demon bear secret claw was in the hands of the grizzly bear army's commander, Tu Qing. A vast amount of star power erupted without any warning. The pure star power that surged into his body continuously washed through his body, causing his skin to become a faint gold color. The hidden injuries in his body quickly healed, and his cultivation that had been stagnant for many years actually began to stir. Yan Yonglai squinted his eyes with killing intent. He slowly swept his gaze across everyone. Tu Qing was speechless. He nodded his head, using all his strength to nod. Tu has met with misfortune. Yan Yonglai's tone was calm. Your Majesty. The treasures in their hands were weakening. Although the degree of weakening was not fast, but they knew what this sign meant. Tu Qing was startled and immediately lost his voice. Don't tell me. Tu Qing's footsteps stopped, mist forming in his eyes, his thin lips pursed tightly. He suddenly raised his head, his gaze resolute, and strode forward. The legend was true. Tu Qing sighed and warmly consoled. Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. Bang! Golden flames spewed out from his body, and his clothes turned into ashes. Ursa Major constellation was already in a mess. The extremely pure star power. Your Majesty. Not good. The commander-in-chief of the grizzly bear army, Tu Qing. When the star power started to fluctuate, he could feel it. He suddenly stood up, his face revealing a look of disbelief. In the next moment, the blood drained from his face as though he had suddenly aged a lot. In these 3 months, not only will your treasures not weaken, but they will become stronger. Yan Yonglai's gaze was crazy. Once you launch a surprise attack, I will send out an order to mobilize everyone. Take down Orion constellation. Only by taking down Orion constellation can we survive. This battle, there is no victory or defeat, only life or death. If we win, we will have everything. If we lose, we will have nothing. His fists were clenched tightly, his entire body trembling. Everyone looked at each other, but all of them bowed and complied, retreating like a tide. In the blink of an eye, only Yan Yonglai and Tu Qing were left in the palace. To a constellation, such a result was fatal. The strong became stronger, the weak became weaker. The shrinking of the star power would cause the star treasure of the constellation to enter a period of decline. The weakening of the star power would affect the martial artists of the constellation the most. Their ability to survive would quickly drop, and the strength of the constellation would also drop. Tu Qing's mind trembled and could not help but exclaim, Your Majesty, you cannot. This is its final combustion. Yan Yonglai said coldly, To be able to make the desolate bare bone burn, I am very curious who has the ability to do so. It was as though he was reborn, and the pain was similar to being reborn. Tang Tian groaned. Similarly, the silver spear in Ling Su's hands, the sheep horn wind bells were like two small whirlpools, absorbing the star power with all their might. Tu Qing's face was thin, his gaze as sharp as a sword, his expression solemn, his entire body covered in armor. When he moved, the armor clattered. Everyone felt much more at ease. The two most important and strongest people of Ursa Major constellation were there. Even if there was anything difficult, there would definitely be a way. Let's not care about that first. Yan Yonglai squinted his eyes. We are already at the most dangerous point. Tell the Honorable Martial Alliance to change our plans. We request to immediately attack Orion constellation. Directly attack and give up on the plan to go around Andromeda constellation. Yan Yonglai's roar was like the rage of a bear king in the forest, resonating in the palace. All the other sounds disappeared. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. Chaotic footsteps came from outside the palace. Yan Yonglai once again regained his usual resolute self. He turned and walked up the stairs, sitting on the throne. Tu Qing resolutely turned and walked out of the palace. Bang bang bang. Tu Qing had roughly guessed it when he came. He had followed Yan Yonglai for many years, and could hear the deep sorrow hidden in Yan Yonglai's calm tone. Yan Tu was deeply doted on by Yan Yonglai, and was the first successor of Ursa Major constellation. Compared to Yan Tu, the other successors were too lacking. You don't have to worry for me. Yan Yonglai waved his hand and said solemnly, the desolate bare bone was once a gold-ranked treasure that had the qualifications to become a saint treasure. Just that because it controls star power, it did not have much of an increase in fighting power, so the Skull King Bear was designated as a saint treasure. 1/3 of Ursa Major constellation's star power is controlled by it. I gave it to Tuer was to use the star power to refine his body. Never did I expect. That was star power. This battle you must win. Yan Yonglai stared fiercely at Tu Qing like a ferocious bear. We do not have time. I can only help you fight for 2 months. The bone in his hand slowly melted in the golden light, transforming into a pool of golden liquid. With a speed visible to the naked eye, it seeped into his palm. The cold feeling made him feel indescribably comfortable. It was the extremely pure star power. Your Majesty. It was a vicious cycle. In such a situation, there were only 2 situations that would occur. One was the Saint Treasure's rank dropping, the other was the constellation's star power being greatly depleted, hurting the constellation's foundation. Tang Tian felt as though his body had fallen into a furnace. The golden light aura, bringing with it an astonishing heat, seeped into his skin. A group of people rushed into the basilica like a tide. All of their faces were filled with panic. The sword in Crane's hand was buzzing and trembling, frantically absorbing the golden star power that seemed to be a substance. Tang Tian felt as though he was a piece of metal that was thrown into a furnace. His flesh and blood was continuously being refined. After absorbing the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian, Tang Tian's fleshly body had become extremely strong. Previously, with Qi Guang and Duan Mu as his sparring partners, the 92% completion rate of the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian was being absorbed by him at an astonishing speed. His body's quality had improved by leaps and bounds. Regardless of strength or speed, they had all reached an unimaginable level. Chapter 425. But to the enemy they would definitely not feel that it was a pleasure, because it meant that this army had an extremely shocking tactical discipline and obedience. There were many factors that determined whether an army was strong or not, but an army that was extremely obedient and disciplined would not be easy to deal with. Honorable Martial Alliance Gold-ranked martial artist, 6 dead and 7 injured, mysterious 6th Division President, fatal strike. Countless of stone powder that was even finer than flour suddenly exploded. Angelina could not dodge in time and was struck by the stone powder. Her entire body was covered with stone powder. But Tang Tian, who had just opened his eyes, saw Angelina's anxious expression, and could not help but feel surprised. He had to slowly figure out the matter of his body. For Angelina to be so anxious, he was afraid that something big had happened. The silver shining battle robes made the Lupus army look like a pool of flowing mercury. The use of the energy room allowed the soldiers of the Lupus army to grow extremely quickly. When had they ever experienced such dense energy? Other than being overjoyed, all of them worked hard. The Lupus army might not have high talent, but in terms of perseverance and hard work, They could be ranked in the top 3 in the entire heavens road. His buttocks had not even touched the ground, when he heard an extremely loud explosion. A powerful and peerless flow of air rushed into the ground. Angelina was stunned and immediately screamed, "Tang Tian!" Bao Saint Na Yi was a disciple of an aristocratic family, and since young he had displayed astonishing talent. His teacher was a person who had a high reputation and was hailed as the founder of the curved arrow flow, the Bao Saint Shijiran. Na Yi inherited his teacher's curved arrow flow, and brought it to greater heights, and was bestowed as a saint at the age of 42. The perfectly straight golden light pillar pierced through the blue dome of heaven, connecting the earth and the sky as one. Tang Tian was also stunned. After a while he opened his mouth, his face flushed red and stammered. His feet landed on the ground and his entire foot sank into the ground before he could exert any strength. His eyes blurred, and he actually appeared in front of Angelina. 10 men in a small group. Every small group was like a silver shining spear. Their expressions were not the least bit nervous. Riding their horses forward, it looked like they were casually patrolling, but the formation of the group was still extremely outstanding. Ta Dun turned and left, and upon seeing that, the plateau army also turned and left gloomily. The Bao Saint Naya. Tang Tian was unfamiliar with his own body. Another burst of stone powder. Tang Tian did not know that the desolate bare bone controlled a third of Ursa Major constellation's star power. Most of the star power had been absorbed into his body. All the pores on his body expanded, greedily absorbing every drop of energy around him. The stone floor immediately shattered and an even bigger stone powder exploded out. The pitiful Angelina was once again splashed head-on. Tang Tian's butt was deeply embedded in the ground. The sturdy stone floor looked as though it was made of flour. Tang Tian's current position was extremely strange. He was squatting on the ground, his butt half hanging in the air. Below his butt was a deep hemisphere-shaped stone pit. Until today they had finally met with trouble. Everyone was at a loss. Tang Tian suddenly turned pale with fright. His body had suddenly become so foreign. When everyone's gaze landed on the Lupus army, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. On the 3rd day, Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a faint gold color. The world in his eyes had become completely different. His body was like a part of heaven and earth, one with the heaven and earth. "Your Majesty, that's too powerful." Ta Dun's underlings did not say anything. In truth, inside the plateau army, there were many people who were unhappy with Angelina giving the Andromeda battle robes to the Lupus army. But after personally witnessing the Lupus army's style, everyone did not say anything. They were not rookies. The standard of the opponent's army they could still see. Time slowly passed. At the same time, a golden bear head formed on Tang Tian's back. Fairy City was also in a mess. The sudden increase in strength, the brand new battle robes, caused the Lupus army's mental state to be extremely outstanding. "Forget it, I better stay in the pit and listen to Angelina first." In any constellation, the position of a saint was extremely high, to the point that they would even ignore the orders of the master of the constellation. Orion constellation had 3 saints, and the only one who served the master of Orion was only one, and that was the Bao Saint Na Yi. How could it be like this? Tang Tian gave up struggling and just sat down. The Bao Saint has fallen. Every piece of news caused Heaven's Road to sink into panic and restlessness. Even a saint had fallen. Such an intense battle, it had been too long since they had seen it. In everyone's hearts, saints were undying bodies. They were all strong martial artists that would never lose. The Orion constellation was in danger. The heavenly martial werewolf head imprint on Tang Tian's back continued to shrink, until it was the size of a fist. It followed along Tang Tian's spine, slowly moving down, until it reached the bottom of his tailbone, then stopped moving. Ursa Major constellation was a tyrant. Compared to the 10 equatorial palace halls, they were not inferior. Orion constellation was even more so, one of the 10 equatorial palace halls' strongest constellations. The clash between the 2 powerful constellations would have a deep impact on the situation in Heaven's Road. Chapter 426. That's too fast. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. A constellation's destruction was actually so fast. Furthermore, it was not a small constellation like Lupus constellation, but an equatorial palace hall grade constellation. Angelina was angered by Tang Tian's expression, her face turning cold. Don't tell me Mr. Little Tang plans to sit here and wait for death? Don't tell me Mr. Little Tang thinks that you can stay out of this? Tang Tian did not dare to move. I also do not know if I have entered or not. Ling Su was slightly irritated by Tang Tian's questions. Don't you find it annoying? I will stab him to death. Angelina opened her mouth, but realized that she did not know how to refute. That's right, even Yen Tu died in his hands. Such a person, how could he be a simple-minded brute? No. Tang Tian straightforwardly interrupted Adrian's words. He continued, although I am not smart and can be stupid at times, but I know who I can trust. Little Crane is a good person, Little Su is a violent maniac. What does it matter? I can trust them with my back. You are nothing. I will not trust you no matter how beautiful your words are. It has nothing to do with me. Crane's face darkened, his hand holding onto the hilt of his sword. Ling Su's face was filled with killing intent, staring at Adrian. Am I really that unlucky? Did I really meet an idiot? That means as strong as you also need to listen to others? Adrian raised his eyebrows. Angelina almost scolded him. I said so much, just to wait for you to say, very good, very reasonable? Tang Tian nodded his head, a look of approval. That's reasonable. This old man is going to be unlucky. Are you for real? Tang Tian's face was filled with disbelief. Crane said coldly, let me do it. He can't not see the danger in it, right? We need to think of a countermeasure. Angelina said, if Ursa Major Constellation really wins, then we are finished. They will definitely turn around and deal with us. They will definitely not let their backs have a nail. If they fuse two constellations, they will give birth to an ecliptic palace-grade super constellation. We won't be able to stop them. Compared to him, Tang Tian was far inferior. Angelina stared blankly for a moment before she smiled and said, Mr. Little Tang is too modest. Young Mr. Tang might not know, but this victory of yours has affected the entire situation in Heaven's Road. Me. Tang Tian was flabbergasted. His expression was as though he had heard a funny question. Ta Dun waved his hand and signaled for the scout to retreat. Don't worry too much. You have to believe in his abilities. Angelina looked at Tang Tian expectantly. She was waiting for Tang Tian to come up with some useful plan. In any case, Tang Tian had built such a huge foundation. Such a person shouldn't be an idiot, right? Angelina had been through so many dangerous situations, but not once had she been so dumbfounded. Chapter 427. This brat. Is there something wrong with his brain? Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was as heavy as lead. This completely went against the basic laws of martial arts. The wolf stronghold was already more or less completed, as it was a purely military stronghold. It did not need to be big and was much simpler to build. The rest were all minor details. Stepping straight fist. His past experiences told him when those geniuses were doing stupid things, do not disturb them. Tang Tian got more excited as he fought. He did not need to worry about his legs or his control of his power. All sorts of martial techniques flowed like water, continuously changing in his hands. The reason why low-level martial techniques were low-level, other than its power being smaller and its changes being simpler, the most important point was because of the understanding and usage of true power, which was at a relatively low level. Bing's expression suddenly froze. He opened his eyes wide and stared in disbelief at the shallow pit beneath Tang Tian's feet. Bing frowned. He looked carefully and finally he understood. Blade Saint Xiaoda. Holding back his laughter was truly a test of skill. Bing forced himself to endure. Come, let me see your current strength. He turned and left since he could not give any good suggestions. Then he would let the weird young lad freely display his skills. Who knows, he might be able to create something weird? Belle understood Bing's meaning, but her investigation of Ursa Major Constellation had spent a lot of effort, so she spoke clearly. Ursa Major Constellation's strongest is their grizzly bear army, but they are currently in Ursa Major Constellation. There are no starry doors or waterways between Ursa Major Constellation and Orion Constellation. Yen Yonglai had already sent out the order to mobilize all the martial artists of Ursa Major Constellation, and are currently rushing towards Orion Constellation. This is a good opportunity. Adrian and the rest, Tang Tian threw them to Little Crane. Tang Tian thought sinisterly, I wonder how Little Crane will torture them. I really want to see. Everyone was dumbstruck. They already knew how strong a saint was. But after hearing Belle's narration, they realized that the saint was much stronger than they had imagined. At the place where Tang Tian waved his fist, a transparent ripple appeared. It was a phenomenon formed by the extreme compression of the air. Such ripple soldiers were seen many times. Any martial artist with a bit of strength could unleash such a fist. But Tang Tian's fist actually did not have any true power undulations. Belle had a weird feeling. Could it be that Uncle Bing thought they had a chance of winning? She wanted to say something, but seeing Bing's serious expression, she could not help but nod her head. Only one saint. Chapter 428. Looking down from the sky, the huge Sky Martial Wolf Academy seemed to be boiling. Countless of mechanical spirit weapons surged out from every corner. They ran crazily on the ground, one after another. Their heavy bronze feet brought up mud, causing the ground to tremble. Above their heads, one after another, bronze figures flew past the roofs and treetops. A Maori shouted for half a day, but seeing that no one cared about him, he became unhappy. Hey, 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 don't tell me you guys don't want to show off your new abilities? Don't want to? Really don't want to? Why don't you want to? The students of Sky Martial Wolf Academy, after training every day, had to soak in the ice pool for an hour. The ice pool quickly became the scariest place in the entire academy. But the majority of the students were like Aluan. Although the ice pool was scary, but everyone was willing to endure it. They adeptly drilled into the mechanical spirit weapons, activating the mechanical spirit weapons. Sima Xianxia snorted but did not refute. Liang Qiu was right. Sima Xianxia said faintly, "If Jing Hao is here, then it will be exciting." That is truly shocking. Bing's tone was filled with shock. I never thought that you would actually be able to come up with such a weird martial technique. Congratulations, you've finally found your own path. It's truly an extraordinary path. Fundamental martial techniques, I am looking forward to it. Have you heard? Master Bing is back. Bing nodded his head seriously. Very powerful. But no one has ever walked this path before, you can only find it yourself. Even though he was clear, the current him was just an incomplete spirit general. Not to mention at his peak, even Tang Tian had already started to surpass him. Wahaha, at the crucial moment I still need a lively martial man to be able to turn the situation around. A Maori shouted while running. He bent his thick and sturdy arms. Sky Martial Wolf Academy. But once he had made a decision, Bing did not hesitate. He went to the barracks training grounds, where Tang Tian was still immersed in his own weird creation. Bing observed for a moment, did not disturb him, and quietly left. You need more actual combat experience. The creation of any martial technique, in addition to creative thinking, also requires continuous tempering in actual combat. Only by constantly fighting with experts will your understanding of martial skills continue to deepen. Nurturing war with war, this is a method that will always be useful. Bing looked at Tang Tian, who was nodding his head, and smiled. Are you interested to challenge a saint? The murderous order reverberated in the sky, and everyone in the courtyard could hear it. Liang Qiu shook his head. He must have his own ideas. Compared to war, we are the amateurs. Master is really amazing. Good heavens, to force Ursa Major constellation to this stage. However, everyone couldn't help but look forward to it.